So, if you're completely new to Heroes of Might and Magic, you might be asking yourself, what on earth am I looking at? Well, this is a game full of dwarves, dragons, knights, and basically your standard fantasy fare. It's a turn-based strategy which relies on mechanisms of leveling up, building up and battling your armies, managing resources, and building up your magnificent castle from the ground up. There are elements of adventure as you explore the land, elements of careful strategy and management as you decide which units to recruit and how to form your armies. There are different factions to choose from, and each one has a campaign mode and unique abilities. If you're new to this game, I'd advise you to start up on Novice, since things can get a little tricky if you're not used to tightly micromanaging fantasy kingdoms so that they can wage war. The factions, respectively, are Asylum, Necropolis, Academy, Preserve, Stronghold and Haven, each with their unique set of monsters, skills, spells, heroes, and of course buildings, and even music on the city screen for you to enjoy. Many of the things introduced in this installment were actually kept in later Heroes games. One of the more interesting ones is the fact that you have to choose between certain creature dwellings being built instead of others, which adds more strategy in my opinion. I do miss being able to upgrade my creatures, as I feel that's something which added an important layer of strategy, where you would decide which units to update, when and how relative to your financial resource constraints. But now you can have your creatures walk around on the map, which is nice, but also confusing as soon as the novelty of it wears off. Sure, it's fun to see vampires and skeletons walk through meadows, but then it ends up being a tool for reconnaissance missions via the units, the ones which can move further, which feels like work rather than fun. And then there's the issue of the battle map being 3D and fixed view, which makes it difficult to anticipate how far an archer can shoot, or to use movement as part of your combat strategy. So these are things that have been changed and in my opinion were not improvements. The underfunding and understaffing in this game was what caused it to be so mediocre and disappointing in my opinion. They did a great job considering they only had 2 programmers on the job for most of the project, with one of the aforementioned programmers actually working at the same time as a designer for the project. It's sad, because between the cracks you can see innovation and strengths peeking out. This could have been an amazing game had more manpower been put into creating new assets, narratives, campaign maps, and keeping the graphic style more coherent. This is ironically a mistake that has been repeated in the newer games of Heroes of Might and Magic, especially Heroes of Might and Magic 7, where it feels like the game can decide how it wants to look, making you feel like you're playing a different game when you look at the castle screen, the map, and the fight screen respectively. That's of course a subjective interpretation, and I understand that this stylistic choice doesn't bother certain people, or may not be particularly noticeable to them much at all. One thing that was a glaring omission though was the lack of a multiplayer system when this game came out. This was again due to time and money constraints, but this was later patched up. Nonetheless, some people feel like this was the death knell for this series, and in a way for New World Computing, the company that worked on it, and never worked on Heroes game again. The lack of multiplayer, creature upgrades and relatively unupdated graphics supposedly threw people off. I personally don't think it was all as simple as that, and perhaps pirating had a bigger role to play in the game's lack of success. Now for something a bit more positive, the music. The music in my opinion is one of the best in this series. It was composed by the legends Anthony Romero and Rob King, who also composed the music for Might and Magic Mandate of Heaven. If you're like me and you like a bit of classical and ambient sounds thrown into your gameplay, you'll love the music in this installation of the heroes. It also fuses seamlessly as you change from town to the map, with little to no jarring between the songs. I mean, they used the Bulgarian women's choir for some of these songs. How much more awesome can you get? Not much. Now, a lot of people like to say that this game was bad, very disappointing, or even just plain horrible. The fact of the matter is that it's still an enjoyable game. I loved the campaigns, especially the Half-Dead campaign, and there's a lot to love on. I would go as far as to make the bold statement that this game is a better bang for your buck than certain newer Heroes of Might and Magic installments. Not to mention that there's a huge modding community out there with many fan-made maps and scenarios to keep you busy for a long time. If you love your turn-based strategies, you'll probably also love the new things this game introduced. A barbarian can go nuts during battle, your stately necromancer can get clobbered over the head with a peasant's pitchfork, and you can have multiple heroes in your active army. The governor feature was also introduced here for the first time. You can assign heroes with special financial and diplomatic abilities to govern your town and make it earn more money. It all feels fun and organic, it brings you closer to the action. To actually have your heroes imprisoned and then liberated, to send out imps to scout or collect resources, to have your hero killed in combat and then bring his sorry butt home via his loyal army of behemoths. The AI is one very valid negative aspect to mention here now. I wouldn't say it's very bad, but it's definitely worth looking into a patch or a mod for it if you're not feeling challenged enough. To be fair, even without a patch, the AI feels challenging, especially if you're a little rusty at the game or if you're a newcomer. So it's not enough of a problem for me to dissuade you from purchasing this gem of a game. Yep, gem of a game, because as much as it does have glaring flaws, it's still a game you'll spend many happy hours on. A game that will suck you in, and even if you've never played a Heroes game before, you'll find the tutorial very useful and informative as far as tutorials go. As scary and complicated as everything might look to a newcomer, it's actually pretty easy to get to grasps with and quite intuitive. So, should you get this game? In my opinion, yes. It's a game you'll enjoy if you're a strategy fan, who can look over a few flaws. Even those flaws are arguably things you'll grow to love and enjoy, such as the mishmash towns and the quirky AI. The campaigns, although disappointingly short, are worth playing for them alone. I especially enjoyed the undead one, the half-undead one actually, which I might end up doing a video on. Should you get expansion packs for it? Probably not. Only if you're a huge fan should you bother shelling out for them. Once again, if you'd like to get this game, your best bet is GOG. I feel like a shill for this website, but it's objectively the cheapest place to get it. You can't get it on Steam unfortunately, but you should be able to grab a CD cheaply if you're so inclined. And an interesting tidbit to end this overview on is that this all takes place in the same universe as the equally if not more so infamous Might and Magic 9, which also suffered from time and financial restraints and was also a hidden gem beneath a lattice of problems. Thank you for watching and see you next time.